Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. I decided that I wanted to do something just over the top RGB today with all of the RGB. Some would call it maximum RGB, but with the premise of it being on a budget, and I'll always use that word pretty loosely when it comes to these videos. So what I decided to do was do a second gen Ryzen build with the 5500 XT in the brand new Aerocool, what is it, Claire? It's the Airhawk Duo. So yeah, let's do a build. Obviously it's already built, but yeah, let's see how it all came together. Like usual with these builds that we do on the channel, they're not permanent PCs. They're basically put together to inspire you guys to build beautiful PCs of your own. And this one has a budget in mind. So I'm not gonna keep talking. I'm just gonna do a build and you're gonna come along for the ride, even though this is already done. But yeah, stop talking, Nick. Do a build. Let's go. Ladies and gents, it's your favorite part of the video, the part of the video where we contact Peel Corp and incorporate the peeling procedure. So let's just get it over and done with and see if we get a decent peel happening. Let's go. Uh-oh. Oh no. Interesting design choice. Yeah, B-roll time. enjoyed this build. Now this build, the reason why it's all filmed out of order and everything is because this build literally took me 35 minutes to put together. It is one of the easiest cases to build in, and Aerocool's a budget brand and they're kind of pushing towards those budget cases, and it actually surprised me at how decent it was. I wasn't expecting it to be as nice to build in as it was, and it comes with those two giant 200mm RGB fans, addressable RGB fans rather. It's got a built-in ARGB controller and the rear fan as well, and Aerocool also sent along some extra fans and the cooler to do a build with as well, so I thought I might as well use it. And it actually turned out pretty good. I like how it looks, and it's not too bad. I'm gonna give Aerocool some points for listening to what people want with cases, because traditionally they have closed front cases. This thing is completely open front and it actually breathes, which you're gonna see with the thermal testing a little bit later in the video. But yeah, let's talk about the actual parts in this so we don't get too sidetracked. So the CPU I went with was the Ryzen 5 2600. The reason why I went with this chip is because it's ultra budget. You can get them for very, very, very cheap now. And they're one of my favorite Ryzen chips. They're just such good value for money. Now, I also went with the B450 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi that we used the other day. I didn't film a teardown for the other build that we did with it, but I do like this board and it's pretty decent. This one's got the latest BIOS on it and it will run the Ryzen 3000 chips, and it also had that BIOS installed in it out of the box, which is also quite nice. To cool that Ryzen 5 2600, we're using the Aerocool Cylon 4F. From memory, yeah, that's what it's called. Odd naming scheme, but whatever, it is what it is. It's just a small tower cooler that actually cools the 2600 pretty well, and like I mentioned, you're gonna see that in the thermal testing, and it actually does okay. Another surprise there, I wasn't really expecting that, but to be fair as well, the 2600 isn't exactly the hottest CPU ever made. It's only got a 65 watt TDP, so yeah. Okay, for the GPU, we went with the Gigabyte RX 5500 XT Gaming OC, and this is the 8GB version, not the 4GB version, so yeah, it's the only 5500 XT I've got, so that's why I ended up going with it. Yeah, and that's basically most of the parts. It's got an Aerocool 650 watt bronze power supply. It's got a Team Group M.2. It's got 16 gigs of Team Group Delta R RGB at 3000 megahertz. It's kind of like the perfect speed for Ryzen 2000. We've got Cooler Master braided cable extensions, which are also pretty nice. And yeah, well, like I mentioned, this build was such a quick build that, yeah, it surprised me. It was really nice to build in. The cable management on the back, it could be better, but again, it's a budget case. It's got a built-in RGB controller, and that leads me into the biggest gripe I have with this case and this build. Aerocool's using their own proprietary RGB connectors for the fans in a way that Thermaltake would do it, and the chassis itself feels like a Thermaltake chassis. I don't know if that's by design or by coincidence, or if it's actually a shared platform between the two manufacturers, but it does have a lot of similarities with some of the low-end Thermaltake cases. And that's just from building heaps of PCs, but yeah. Also the RGB, I wanted to mention that as well. It's all configured with the built-in RGB controller. It's got a little button hooked up to the reset switch, and you just press it and cycle through all the effects. And I set it to this kind of tropical unicorn spew that looks pretty cool. So yeah, I didn't want to spend too much time with doing too much with this build. I wanted to make it all of the RGB as easy as possible. And speaking of all of the RGB, with something that's got nothing to do with RGB, let's have a look at all of the benchmarks to show you how this system performs and what the thermals are like. So let's do it. as you saw with all the thermals and stuff, it's actually a lot better than I thought it would be. The variance between using the filters and no filters and the panels on and off, not that huge. Also very surprising, but at the same time, you've got a super open front that is not restricted at all. It's got two giant 200mm fans that are just blasting all the air through the system. So yeah, not actually a big surprise, but a surprise that Aerocool made a case with this much airflow, because they are known for having closed up hot boxes. But yeah, I think that's basically all I've got to say about this build. It was really easy, and yeah, it's fairly nice to build in, and I'm quite surprised with it. Also, just I'll mention this before we continue with an AIO if people are interested. At the top, it's possible that you might be able to fit a 240, but you just have to check for your RAM clearances and the VRM heatsink on the top. But other than that, I think you might be able to actually get away with doing it. Yeah, that's basically all from me. If you want to know all of the parts that we use in this, like the other stuff that I didn't mention that I use in this, there's a PC part picker list down below in the description, so you can check out all of that. And if you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. You can grab that on our Patreon, and soon to be available on Floatplane as well. And that's basically it. Am I done here, Claire?
Yes.
Can I go home? Okay, well, I'm already at home, but I can go home now. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe. If you didn't like the video, you know what to do, and tell us what you hated about it. You can click the join button if you want to support. You can subscribe on Floatplane as well to get early access to our videos. Yeah, that's basically it. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek. And as this Voldemort and the Death Eater situation goes on, I just want you guys to remember one thing, please. Be healthy, eat good food, stay inside, and wash your hands. Thanks for watching.